Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome back into Venting with Us with your girl, Krista. What a week! Holy shitballs. Sometimes I'm like thinking the week is going to be good. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, shit just starts rolling like down the fucking river. It's crazy. Um, so let's I don't even know where to start because it's just been the craziest week. First, we got the Tupac Shakur trial going on. So it's now I can't wait for next week's episode because we're gonna be doing conspiracies, the wildest conspiracies. That's next week's episode. And there's a lot of conspiracies behind the Tupac murder. It's just crazy what's happening that after 30 years of him being, gone and passed away and obviously his music lives forever. I love Tupac. I like Tupac and I liked Biggie. I wasn't like I liked one more than the other. Both of them are different, you know, versatile rappers in their own way, in their own lane. Um But, and again, everybody knows this about me that it's not like I'm that type of person like, I love all the songs. No, every artist out there, I only like a handful of songs. It's the same thing with Beyonce, Taylor Swift, whatever, like whatever songs. I always end up like even Charlie XCX, and you guys know I love her. But there's only like usually like maybe 4 or 5 songs that I like, and then that's it. I keep it moving. But I've always been like that since I was a little girl. Um, but it's wild with this trial because many people are coming out, Crips are coming out, people are getting threatened. Like, I don't, Suge is like, I don't want nothing to do with this. Like, no, you're not gonna get me going on this at all. Um, which is funny because then he spoke out on TMZ, right? And he was like, all these people are they're not telling the truth. They're all lying. Then why did you see, you should have just did the trial. Like, I don't know, like, how are you going to sit back and be like, I ain't saying nothing. You're going to be like, nah, they're all lying. Like, should stop. Like, you can't even do that. Like, that's not even cool at all. But I did listen to his interview with the TMZ, and again, it's just if you have something to say, which obviously you're getting antsy and behind jail, you want to say something, just say it. But I understand in some perspective, like he can't. Like, there's a lot of shit. Like, there's so much that we don't know that people cannot say, and that's why a lot of these people are probably allegedly, getting threatened, and shit is happening because you're not supposed to be a rat. So that happened. That's happening right now. Which I hope this gets pinned down on Diddy because to this day, I still, and even after watching the Diddy documentary, where again, I don't understand why people do documentaries or they do like these shows because it just incriminates them. It's just like, if I, like, let's say I committed a crime, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I like knives. I'm a knife collector. Look at this one. And then the person that I murdered died from the same type of knife thing. I just gave myself away. I just showed on air criminal evidence. Like, this really annoys me. As you guys can see, it's just retarded to me. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people do it. But anyways, I've always believed that Diddy had some type of revenge against Tupac. I think that he didn't like Biggie to affiliated with Tupac. I think that Biggie and Tupac were cool. They were going to do things together. Tupac may have been in, again, allegedly, I don't know. He may have been in Biggie's ear and been like, nah, this and this and this, or this and this and that. And Tupac didn't like that. And if you saw the documentary, he was very possessive over people. Like he would, not really include them in certain things. So that way other people couldn't be in other people's ear. So this will be interesting because his name already came up in trial. So this is going to be interesting if he gets, and then you guys know what I always say, karma always has a way to come back. It doesn't matter. It may take the longest, but some way, somehow that shit always comes back around. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets pinned on this one. So who knows? Next we have the Pat Benatar. I think. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. I'm thinking of the singer. The singer Hayden Pan. I think that's the way you say her last name is Panatia. I think that I can never say her last name. I liked her though in Heroes. Very, very sad. Again, this is, they're saying allegedly that she passed away from an overdose. It's weird. The ex-boyfriend was there. You guys know, I like crime, ID channel and all that shit. It's just weird. But people that she was working on films with have come out and said that she was struggling while she wasn't doing her last film. So it's really, really, it's kind of hard to say, but maybe, something was going on, which was making her struggle during her filming. I know it's under investigation. It started out in one thing and now they've confiscated the boyfriend's and his brother's phones. They want to see what led up to the overdose. So I'm just hoping and praying that, that it's not a murder. That I'm hoping it's not an overdose. I'm hoping it's something else. Because I did like her. I did love her in Nashville too. She's such a great, great actress. But this is also falling under the conspiracies. This is why I'm going to do that episode next week. Because there's a lot of conspiracies with her book that is coming out, that she was going to start naming names and that she was going to start letting out people in the industry, and supposedly, allegedly, this is the reason what led up to her death. So who knows? You never know. But I have a lot going on. And it's also weird how I picked this timing. I always say everything happens for a reason, because TMZ is also coming out with their conspiracy theory on Princess Diana, which I don't know if you guys know about that, but I'm not going to get too much into what next week is about because I want to keep you guys on your toes. Maybe I might give you a little hint at the end of this episode. All right. So besides all of that, I'm trying to think, was there anything else that I'm keeping out this week? Ugh. It was a lot, when I tell you, a lot. So last week we left off, I was letting you guys know about this woman named Tonia. And this episode is called The Woman Who Was Not There. So I'm going to tell you guys a story, okay? And by the end of it, it's either going to be that she was telling the truth or telling a lie. So this takes place many moons ago. On September 11th, we had the biggest catastrophe in the whole entire world. Maybe not one of the biggest, but one. We had the 9/11 buildings completely destroyed. Planes went through the towers. There's always been things that led up to why, and people to this day are still dealing with the trauma, dealing with the aftermath, dealing with health issues from 9/11. And it was a big thing, and a lot of people could not talk about 9/11 for a short while. Films were canceled that even showed the towers. And I remember, and I don't know if I ever said this story. I remember the day before this actually happened, me and my grandfather and my ex-boyfriend were talking about the towers, and he was saying, you should really go over there. It's beautiful. They have all these shops, and if you go up to certain levels, it's beautiful. If you guys want, we'll go tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, let's go, let's go. So I ended up getting called into work, and so did my ex-boyfriend because he was a chef at that time. And I don't know if he's still a chef, but all of a sudden, I remember saying, oh my God, if I wouldn't have been called in, I would have been in the towers. And this is crazy. So, just this is why I always say, like, things always happen for a reason. You can never really be like, oh my God, that was, oof. I think everybody has timing when things happen. So Tonia was one of the survivors. They did this big thing on all the people that survived in 9/11. And she told her story, how she was in the building and that she ended up losing her fiance, who was in the North Tower. She had burn marks in her left arm, and it was almost severed, that she almost lost her left arm because of it. And that she was in a room with a good amount of people who did not survive. She was the only survivor there. And the way she explains her situation, her story, it really touched so many people that they created a foundation around her. They did a lot. She was on the news. People wanted to know her story. She started speaking to other survivors, how did she get out? And she would tell her story that, she just remembered trying to stay calm, remembering that her fiance that she just met about a month ago, that they fell in love. It was meant to be, that they had such an amazing life. And, she was hoping and praying that he would survive so that way they would get married, that she was trying to keep the room as calm as possible. There was so much fire. There was so much smoke everywhere, but that she was trying to stay positive for everybody else that was in the room. People were throwing themselves out the window out of fear of either burning to death or, that was the other option, which I don't know if in either situation, I don't think I could do either one, to be honest with you. Burning hurts, and jumping out a window on the 78th floor is like, I don't like roller coasters because of this. Like, I just, that when you're coming down, that adrenaline is just, I've never, like, I liked it for a little while, but I think going to Six Flags, and I'm not trying to compare this to Six Flags, I'm just talking about like going down a roller coaster and the way you feel that impact. So that way you have an idea. I never liked that. So, I can only imagine the amount of how my family, where my family is, how I'm going to miss my family, like, and it's very sad. So she said that the only reason why she survived was because there was a firefighter that came in everyone had burnt to death or they had died from smoke inhalation. Did I say that right? Probably didn't, but you guys know what I mean. And he was wearing a red scarf and he carried her out. And when she was out there, they took her to the hospital. They did emergency surgery on her arm. And her story was just so inspirational. And the few survivors that survived were so impressed with her story, and they were telling their story, and they were just like, I was feeling this traumatic emotion, and Tonia would come to me and she made me feel so secure. She made me feel like, we survived, we're survivors, we can do this, we can keep going. We were meant to tell our story. We are, we are meant to continue going. And every single survivor that they had on this documentary, which you can actually find it on Prime if you have Prime. It's again, it's called The Woman Who Wasn't There. And they started doing charity work. She really wanted to do things for the people that had not survived. She wanted to do this monument, this charity to the families and give them money and let them know, like, look, this is what happened. Started getting suspicious because things were not adding up and people were starting to dig a little bit. But they didn't want to question Tonia so much because she's a 9/11 survivor. Like, why would someone lie about this? Why would somebody want to survive such a traumatic thing that happened? And nobody really wanted to question it. But they started noticing that in her arms, it wasn't like burnt. It was like weird. And the grafts didn't look like burn grafts. So one of the people started digging. They didn't see anything about a fiance. They didn't see anything about her life. And it started becoming a little suspicious. Things were not adding up. She started becoming close with one of the survivors, and she would ask her, Tonia, you know, you have to have a picture of your fiance. What does he look like? What was the name of the firefighter? And she was like, I can't give out that information. I can't do this. I can't, And she did not want to really say much to Tonia because, again, out of fear of, look, this woman has just been through the most traumatizing thing in her life. How am I going to sit there and be like, your story is not true? It wouldn't feel right. It would be very out of place for me to say something like that. And Tonia started becoming upset and crying and telling people, I can't believe that you guys would not believe my story. I am telling you, I was in that building. It's not my fault that I lived and all the other people, passed and they lost their lives. And she milked them over with this story. And at this point, they're like, you know what? We're not going to ask any more questions. We're just going to keep going. Now the news is getting more involved with the charity, and Tonia doesn't like this one particular person that's within the charity group, and he's asking more questions because he's getting details about the other survivors because they're going to do this big thing. And he's like, this story just still does not make sense. And I hate myself for even believing that I'm thinking that this woman is lying. But he was up for, they were doing a voting of who was going to become president, who was going to be vice president of this charity group. And he was in the run for it. And then when he started asking more questions and investigating Tonia more and more and more, she got people, because she was such a great manipulator, that all the people turned against this one guy, and they ended up asking him to leave the charity group. Next thing he knows, he finds out that Tonia ends up being the president of this company. So one of the survivors' family members was this prominent New York, family group. And the charity wanted the family to donate some funds over to the charity group. And they wanted to speak to Tonia in particular, because Tonia had claimed that she had known their son. But she didn't want to speak with people in the room. So she spoke to the family privately, and the family was very suspicious. They were like, something just doesn't make sense. How did she know my son? They were not in the same building. Things just were not adding up. So this story now flips, and it starts to fall apart. And Tonia, who is close with this one survivor, the survivor says, and I forgot her name, I apologize. She says to her, she's like, you know what? I think you should get a lawyer and speak to the lawyer, because at this point, stuff is going to start coming out. And, I'm on your side, but maybe you should get a lawyer to, at least have your back on this. So they go to the lawyer, and I have no idea why even Tonia decided to go see the lawyer, but okay. And now the lawyer, because the friend could not go in with Tonia, being that she wasn't a family member and she wasn't a relative, she stood out in the hallway. Tonia starts giving out all of this information. She says hours go by, and then the lawyer calls in the friend. The friend goes in. Tonia's there. She's crying. And the lawyer starts speaking openly at this point. And he's like, oh, you know what, Tonia? It's going to be okay. It's not a big deal that you didn't have a fiance, and he was not in the towers. And she's like, her friend is looking at her, she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this whole story, everyone was feeling bad for you because you had said you had a fiance and he was in the towers. And she was like, I was just embarrassed. When someone brought it up, I didn't want to, we were just friends. We had just met. And the lawyer is like confirming. He's like, it's fine. People meet randomly, and, it's okay. It's not a big deal. We can get through this. But you're sure that you were in the building, right? And she says, well, I was just not on that floor that I stayed at. And the lawyer, I really would like to know who this lawyer is, because he was a fucked up lawyer. He was like, well, it's okay that you were not on the floor that you said you were, but you were rescued by a firefighter. And she was like, yes. So the friend is sitting there. She's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. What the fuck? So they leave the lawyer's office, and the friend now calls everybody in the group and then says, okay, I have something to tell you. I think Tonia is lying about this whole thing, because this is what was said in the lawyer's office, and everybody now is astonished. Okay. So not only was Tonia's fiance, not real, but he was also not in the North Towers, and he was never on the 78th or the 96th floor that she tried to claim. On top of it, her name was not even Tanya. Her name was Alicia Estevez. And she was actually in Barcelona, Spain when 9/11 hit. So they show a clip of, oh my God, Alicia actually graduating from school um a couple of days prior to this. You see her in the photos and everything. She's like, it's like, what the fuck? Her friend said that they had no clue that she was even in New York for the weekend or even in New York for that week, but that her name was very well known in Spain because she's the daughter to the father who embezzled millions of dollars with her brother, and they were serving time in prison. So why she fabricated this 9/11 story, nobody will ever know. But she ended up going back to Barcelona, Spain. She's living her life there. And it is the wildest thing to make up. Like, and the people, the poor survivors, what she did to these survivors was crazy because they all said the same thing. They were like, why would you want to even like live that lie? Like, it was such a traumatic experience. Like, it's something that I would never wish upon anybody else. All of them said this in there. The fact that she went on TV, she met the mayor. Oh my God, that was even worse because they show clips of the mayor. They they show her on all different types of news. Like how did you not like even think like, okay, this may lead up into Spain somewhere. Like someone's gonna get a hold of this. Like, I don't know. Do you not have friends? I have no idea what is going. Are you okay? Tonia / Alicia. So, this is again, this documentary is the woman who wasn't there. If you guys want to see it, it's on Prime. Next week we're gonna do conspiracies. If I told you that the Walt Disney movie Frozen was actually made for the cover up of Mr. Walt Disney himself, because supposedly his body is frozen and is buried under the Pirates of the Caribbean in Walt Disney. Would you believe that? Or would you think this is a conspiracy? But this is one of the wildest conspiracy theories that are out there. And I have many, many more. I will see you guys next week. I hope you like this episode. Continue to get people to follow the show. Thank you so much. Love you. Have a great weekend. Bye.